the dark that cut like a blade. Young hearts with a midnight riot, burning fire and you can't fight it. Wild beasts that can't be tamed. Wild beasts that can't be tamed. Shine a spotlight on a fading flame. Break the chains, break the binding. Now's the time, come out of hiding. Wild beasts that can't be tamed. Calling you, hey, calling you, hey, calling you, hey. We're the revolution. Red, red, revolution. Red, red, revolution. Red, red, revolution. We're the revolution. Red, red, revolution. Red, red, revolution. Red, red, revolution. We're the There's a line to cross and a line to break. Lost and found out on the fringe, not down, down, not taking it. We're the wild beasts that can't be tamed. Hey, calling you, hey, calling you, hey, calling you. We're the revolution. Red, red, revolution. Red, red, revolution. Red, red, revolution. We're the revolution. Stand up, stand up, stand up. Stand up, stand up, stand up. Stand up, stand up, stand up. We're the revolution.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. When any form of government becomes destructive at these ends, it is the right of the people to alter it or abolish it and to institute new government. We are the revolution.
Stand up, stand up, stand up. Stand up, stand up, stand up. Stand up, stand up, stand up. We're the revolution. Stand up, stand up, stand up. Stand up, stand up, stand up. Stand up, stand up, stand up. We're the revolution.
podcast tonight, and as soon as I'm done with that, we can hang out. So, you know, however you want to do that. I'm having a good day today, and I'm glad you asked me to do this. This is a good way to kind of shut the day down. So I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, man, thank you so much for coming on. You know, one of the things and one of the reasons that I started the podcast really to begin with was I've always just had this approach, and people either really like my approach or they really don't. And for the people that don't like it, it's like I really don't care. But I just have this thing of that I think people should know the truth. And I know that sometimes the truth hurts. Almost all the time the truth hurts. And I just don't believe in the system that we've got right now of what's going on around Nashville, around the music business. There's a lot of people pumping a lot of people up for no good reason. And I think the downfall of our industry is because of that, because there's so many people that don't deserve to be where they are. They're there. And they're making decisions in our business purely because of personal relationships and not because of any music business acumen, experience, or anything like that. And I just wish that people would hear the truth early on, so maybe if they need to go a different course, they can.
Well, the truth, you know, Jesus said it best, the truth will set you free. And that is absolutely, that in itself is the truth, you know. And I hear what you're saying, man. I will tell you this. It took me some years to come to this, but I don't know when the epiphany finally hit, but there was one day kind of fell on me like a ton of bricks. And that was the realization that the people who ran, not just the music business, but I'm talking about the entire entertainment business, were just people. And, you know, they weren't really any smarter than anybody else necessarily.
Right.
I mean, everybody's an individual. So you run into some people who really do, you go, man, okay, she gets it or he gets it or whatever. But for the most part, man, people are people, and you learn as you go, and you take risks and you make mistakes, and you make this assertion and that assertion, and you bet on this and you bet on that, and you lose on this one. Anyway, it's just an aggregation of that, and people in the music business who've been in it for 20 years or 15 years or whatever, that's just all that's what they've done. That's where their experiences come from, trial and error and learning things and trying this and failing at that and whatever. And that's what's happened to me. I mean, I would imagine that's pretty much how your career has been as well, you know? So, I always tell people I always have a general kind of, piece of advice I give to people, when they ask me, you know, how do you do this and how do you, I just say, just start, you know, just start and,
right.
Start where you are. I had a long conversation with a guy that I was like a childhood friend a couple of weeks ago, and he interested in coming to Nashville and wants me to sort of mentor him. And I'm like, man, you know, I don't think you need a mentor. Nobody needs a mentor. You need to get out there and do what it is you want to do. I will tell you this, Stephen, I don't mean to just be long-winded here, but one of the things that people have at their disposal today that you and I probably didn't have when we were coming up, you have access to just everything. I mean,
yeah.
If you've got an iPhone, you've got more access to the world, to the world of music. You've got more access to anything than we had 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So, man, do your thing. You know, Facebook Live your concerts. You know, there's stuff you can do that people before you couldn't do. And so I just tell people, man, just start. Just do what you can do where you are, and it's the same business. It was the same business in the 1800s. It's the same business now. You play your thing and you do your thing, and if people like it, they will come around and listen. And if they don't, they won't. And they'll tell you pretty quickly, you know, if you're doing something cool or not.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was telling somebody, not long ago to follow up on the point you just made, which is so true. People don't realize there is more technology in the phone that you hold in your hand than the Beatles had, or Elvis Presley, or any of those guys in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And I mean, you got
more technology in your hand than they went to the moon with.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, it's nuts, and that's why I don't get, and I get hung up, and because I develop a lot of artists, and working with them, I always get so frustrated when I hear the obstacles that they think are in their way. Oh, if I only had a manager, if I only had a publicist, if I only had a radio promoter. And it's like they wake up every morning and they put so many things between themselves and achieving the success and the goal they want to achieve. And it's almost like it's one excuse after another for them not to have to work real hard. That's one of the things that I notice a lot, is that I see people talk about how much they sacrifice. And I look at that and I go, no, you going without Starbucks for 2 days is not sacrificing, and maybe I'm wrong and I'm different in that, but that's and I don't mean to be demeaning when I say kids, but the kids coming up, they have come from this generation where they can write a song, sit down at the piano, sing it, and put it up on YouTube, and the next thing you know, they are all over the world in a month and a half. That's the world they've grown up in. Carrie Underwood, before stepping on American Idol, never played for an empty room. The girl went from serving shakes at Sonic to sell out concerts in arenas. So,
yeah, that's right.
That is, I think anyway, songwriters, producers, artists, everybody in the business that is of that age think that is the path to success, is that they're missing just that one thing that's going to take them from serving the shakes to selling out stadiums. And they don't think about or have any idea what comes in the middle and what's in between there.
Yeah, I think there's a disservice that we do to ourselves and to people younger than us. Eliminates. It's very much like a muscle, if you don't strain a muscle, if you don't push it to its limit, then it never changes. It never gets stronger. It never sculpts. It never gets to, its fullest potential. And that's a microcosm, I think, of all of this. I mean, you look at the Beatles, and before they went on Ed Sullivan, people forget those guys did 10 years in little dank clubs in Hamburg and doing 4:45s a night and, playing till 4 a.m. and sleeping on people's floors. I mean, those guys worked their butts off getting good at what they did and honing their craft and playing the rooms that weren't full and having to deal with different audiences and having to get above bar noise and all that stuff that you can't stage, you can only learn on small stages. And I think, I think that's why they lasted so long. And I think that's why obviously they had such a huge musical repertoire in their heads, because man, they've been slugging it out for a decade before they ever, went on Ed Sullivan, and it's sort of that the arc of like preparation meeting opportunity. Theirs was, just sort of at the apex. They had deep preparation and then a big opportunity, and they were ready for it. And I agree with you. Now listen, I always pay homage to American Idol. I'm a product of it. I won a contest, a song contest. I'm part of the American Idol alumni. But having said that, I do think there is a phenomenon that is kind of taking place where we have these shows like America's Got Talent and American Idol and The Voice and, all these, and people feel like that's okay. So they get that one shot and they feel like that's going to change their lives. It's so funny. My wife and I look at each other, shake our heads when we see these kids on these, these production packages of if I can just get to this spot and I can get enough people to hear me, it will change my life. And what we know, because I've been doing this for 40 years, it might not change your life. Work it even after you get that audience. There's work to do.
That's right.
You know what I mean? It's not going to just come to you. It isn't like this. It isn't like you win American Idol or you place. Let's say you place, and 13 million people a week see you, and then by the way, then all of a sudden the phone starts ringing. That's not the way it works. You know, you still have you got to get out there and work. You're your own corporation. And you're the difference. And I can't tell you, and you probably, Steve, but I play all over the country, and we're to the point now where literally every time I go somewhere, someone, so-and-so's from here, they were on the 7th season of Idol, season of Voice, or they were you know what I mean? And I have a hard time. Yeah, everybody.
We're having a little bit of audio problem there with hey, Reggie, if you can hear me, we're losing the audio on you there.
Okay.
Yeah, there you are. You're back.
Yep. And so what I was saying is, you know, everybody's having a hard time getting booked whose name isn't Justin Timberlake. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so, but let me tell you this, Justin Timberlake is working every day. You know what I mean? He's not just sitting back being Justin Timberlake. He's out there working. He's making things happen, obviously on a bigger level, but he's still, I promise you, getting up and working harder than the next guy.
Oh, absolutely.
So, you know, that's really, that's never changed. I mean, people look at Elvis and, you know, they think of him, this is an inevitable sort of ubiquitous thing. People don't realize, we talked about this, you and I did a show together in Alabama, and we talked about this very thing. About people not realizing how many shows that guy did, you know, and how hard he worked really his whole career.
Right.
And really never really let up. I mean, that's probably one of the things that killed him, you know, honestly, is that he probably worked a little too hard. But I'm with you, man. I think that it's like old fashioned. Nobody wants to hear that. It's not sexy. It's not the thing anybody wants to, you know, they want some kind of magic potion, but there really isn't one. That's the truth. You know, I tell people all the time, they get into this business for the wrong reasons. And trust me, I get it, because we all got into it for the wrong reasons. I mean, to impress girls.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's not hard. You know, it's not hard to know exactly why. And even that's the first reason. And the second reason is because we had this hole in us that the love and appreciation and admiration of other people is the only thing that can fill it. And that is such a strong pull on a person. But you have to understand that no matter what level you're at, and I'll give two extremes here, and one is I don't like talking about, but I'm going to say it, is that you have to realize, and I tell people, this business is not all red carpets, award shows, and plaques on the wall. That is a very small, minute percentage of the business that every so once in a while you get when something that you did just almost, it's almost like won the lottery. And that's about the shot that you've got. Now, that's right. That also, I think, is the difference between people who want to be successful and people who want to be famous. If you want to be in this business and you want to be successful, there is nothing stopping you. There is nothing in your way. Now, most people aren't happy with success. They want the fame. And that's where, you know, I was telling somebody the other day, I truly believe this with all my heart, that in some of the artists that I've worked with, even in the last couple of years, they would rather have the perception of fame than the reality of success. And that is such that, because we live in this social media, like me, follow me, double click this society, that the only way that we feel that anything is of value is if there's some token that goes along with it. If it wins an award, then it's valuable. If it gets 1,000 likes, then it's good. If your channel has 500,000 subscribers, then you're doing good. And we set these mile markers and these places too far out there to where people, I think, are having a hard time achieving them. You're especially going to have a hard time achieving fame. But going back to what I was saying, look at all of these artists that we're losing to suicide. If you are an aspiring songwriter or an aspiring artist or actor or want to be in the entertainment business, and you think that life is all great when you achieve what you see these people that you want to model your career after on Instagram, and they're killing themselves left and right, they're missing something. And I think a lot of that is because they skip out on the middle part of the journey. They don't learn to live with their success. They just get it.
One of the things you may be touching on.
Hold on, we lost you again.
I'm sorry, man. I've got dead spots where I am. So
I know we've got them all over here.
Tell me if
You're
when
good.
you got me again.
You're good.
I think one of the things I don't want to get too far afield here, but and you're talking about something that could also be spiritual, could be seen as spiritual.
Totally.
And just in our society in general, and and yeah, you're right. We are losing people to suicide. There's a lot of hopelessness out there, and I think that has something to do with what we're talking about.
Let me ask you a question, because I know you're for those of you that don't, you're a deep guy, and the one thing that I like about Regie is I don't think that I've ever been around you when something just useless has come out of your mouth. It's like you think about when you're going to say something.
Talk to my wife about that.
Well, she's around you a hell of a lot more than I am, Regie.
That's right.
I know that you're a very well thought out person. And you do your research, and before you talk about something, you either have life experience to back it up, or you've got a really, really good educated opinion on it. And I wonder if we're seeing these things, and we talk about, and like I just said, I think we're all born. If you're any kind of a spiritual person, we're all born with a hole in us, and it all depends on what we choose to fill that hole with. What do we try to bridge that void with?
Right.
And I'm wondering, as this is becoming more and more prevalent with the suicides and violence and people on one side or the other, I wonder if some of that is because we don't have the core value system that even our parents and our grandparents did. And I'm not talking about being ultra conservative. What I'm talking about is like I just said a minute ago, nobody has learned to live. It's either white or it's black. There's very little gray anymore. So when you hop from one to the other, there's a culture shock. The grass is greener on the other side, but the grass will kill you. And
yeah, that's right.
And it's like we see that. It's like almost like people just don't know how to live, and that's a scary thing.
That grass may be greener because it's got all kinds of pesticides in it. You know what I mean?
Well, exactly.
It may not be something that you want to get to. I'll tell you, as I get older, Steve, I've been in this business, in the business side of it now for 27 years, 28 years. And I have to admit that I got into it with the same aspirations that all of us did. I wanted the money, I wanted the accolades, I wanted, but I will say there seems to be a little bit of a difference. I know you well enough to know, I think you probably would agree with me on this. Before I wanted all that stuff, I first wanted to do great work.
Yes.
And I came from this ethos that we kind of came, people who were raised with like the great singer-songwriters of the 70s and whatever. And that was that, okay, if you do great work, then you'll be recognized for it. And everything else that you want in your life will follow it. So I really, spent the time trying to create great work and digging. And I call it being in the ditch, just constantly digging and going beyond myself. And I almost feel like sometimes, not always, I do meet some kids who are really seriously great, but sometimes you see that people are really more interested in the eyeballs, in
Right.
the Instagram followers, the Twitter followers, the whatever, than doing the great work. And then also there's another side of this that I think is really hard to reconcile sometimes in the entertainment business, and that is finding contentment. I saw a guy on The Voice a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it was this week. But anyway, he has this amazing like YouTube following, and he's got this amazing business, this jingle business, and I'm watching all the stuff he does, and I'm like, man, you're doing great.
Right.
That's a wonderful thing you're doing. And it's like, but it's not yet what I want to be. And he gets up and he sings, and to be quite honest with you, he's not The Voice. You know what I mean? He's not that.
Right.
And what I want to do is go put my arm around that guy and say, bro, it's okay. What you're doing is amazing. Live in that. Let that be a thing. That's not nothing. And sometimes, I went to college with this guy who was an amazing graphic artist. I mean, he just had a gift, and he constantly was putting it down because he wanted to be a singer, and he was just a very average singer. And, I confronted him about it once. I was like, man, why don't you just pursue this thing that you're great at? And he admitted to me, he wanted to be on the stage. He wanted to hear the applause. Man, that's a death knell. That's a killer right there. That you're just reaching out, like you said earlier. You just want love.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with you doing what you were born to do. This has to do with you needing a bunch of people to validate you. And and that is, it's not only a killer of you, it's a killer of art. And it's and so the people who really do need to be on that stage, you get conflated with all that. And so I don't know. I just think there's something to like what I would call true humility. And that is knowing who you are, knowing what you do, knowing what you don't do, knowing what you're not, and being okay with all that,
Yeah.
And that's maybe that comes with maturity or whatever, but I think there's a spiritual component to it too. And that's just knowing, hey, I'm not Michael Jackson, and that is okay, because
Right.
there was already one, and he was all the Michael Jackson we needed, and and it was great. But I don't know, man. As I've gotten older, it's like I really want my art, my creativity, all the stuff that I produce, that comes out of me, I want it to help people, and it can only help people if I'm living in the honesty of it, and it's not pretentious, and and it's coming from a really pure place. And I think if we can all get there, man, a lot of these problems can kind of fix themselves,
Well, I mean, I agree with you. I think, I've been for a while now, I've been operating under this new line of thinking, and it could be dangerous, but this is the way that I feel about it. And now this doesn't apply like to other occupations and things that you want to do in life, but in the arts, I think that it applies 100%. And I'm going to this new philosophy that if you have to tell me that you want to be something, then you're not that thing. If you
I'm
have
100% with you.
If you've got to come up, if your thing to me is you send me an email or you come up to me at a show and you say, man, I want to be a songwriter, then you're not one. If you want to be an artist, then you're not one.
Dude, you are ringing the bell so hard right now. I am right there with you. I say this to writers all the time. All the time, Steve. They come up and say, man, I really want to write. And I say, write. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Write. If you say you want to write, then write. That's what writers do. They write. Singers sing. Performers perform. Dancers dance. And you're so right there, dude. I mean, you're right on the money. And I think you have to be honest with yourself, right? You got to be. That's where that maturity comes from, of going, okay, you know what? I'm not really that. I would like to be,
Exactly.
but that's not really what I am.
Or you know what, even to be honest enough with yourself and go, I'm not that good. You know, that's the one thing that, and I've said this before, Garth Brooks will be the first one to tell you that he is not the best singer in the world. But he knew what he had, and he knew what his strengths were. And
that's right.
And the lack of being a great singer has not held him back from being what now the #1 selling solo artist of all time. You know, and that's what I think. I think though that we again, I think it's that youthful new generation thing of, you know, look, you've got kids, I've got kids. We all want to tell our kids, you know, you can do anything, you can be anything, but the truth is you can't. You just can't. You know, it's like, I love you to death, and let's figure out what it is that you have that God-given ability to do, and let's shine a light on that, and let's do that, you know. But you can't be anything you want to be. You just can't. Right. And I think in this generation we've promoted this idea that that anything short of blowing sunshine up somebody's ass is being critical. And sometimes the truth, although it may be critical, is just the truth. And we're too scared to tell anybody the truth anymore.
And also there's a misnomer here that if you tell someone that kind of truth, that it's going to kill all their dreams. I mean, it might kill a certain dream that they had, that maybe they can alter that a little bit. You know what I mean? Maybe they'll go into something that they didn't even know was available to them, that was a better fit for them, and they're going to excel at that, you know, more than they would have, you know, at something else. You know, it's funny we're talking about this, I'm not trying to get political, but I use this guy as an example because I think it's really appropriate. I talk a lot about Ronald Reagan, and Ronald Reagan was a pretty good actor, right?
Right.
He was pretty good. You know, he wasn't like the greatest actor of his generation, but he was pretty good. And he could have ridden that train until it completely Ronald Reagan could have been known as a pretty good actor who was a footnote in history. But what he discovered was he got involved in the Actors Guild, and he discovered that he had real leadership ability. And he, instead of saying, no, I'm an actor, I'm not doing this, he kind of leaned into it. Well, then he became the governor of California. Well, then he became a 2-term president and a world-changing president. Not just I mean, whether you agree with his politics or not, you can't argue with the fact that he was a world changer. Now, he wouldn't have been a world changer as an actor.
No.
But at some point, he kind of put a knife in that dream and said, you know what? I have other things I can do that may be more important to people than this. And I look at that example. I think, you know, it's not necessarily always a bad thing to change horses in the middle of the stream. I mean, I'm all for perseverance. I'm all for stick-to-itiveness. All that stuff those are all great qualities. But sometimes it's okay to look in the mirror and go, you know what? I'm not going to be the next Eddie Van Halen, but I may be able to be something else. I'm going to be me.
Well, no,
you know?
No, I totally agree. And I think, you know, dreams can be dangerous. And here's why. And in our business, and you know this is true, but I run across more people that are really good at what it is they're doing at the moment, but that's not what they want to be doing. You run across somebody at a publishing company that is a great song plugger. They're a great creative person. They've never met a stranger. They never take no for an answer, and they're very persistent, but they don't want to be that. They want to be the songwriter, or they want to be the artist, or they want to be A&R at the record label, and that always creeps in. And I agree with you 100%, because I think that a lot of times people's dreams keep them from an amazing reality. And
well, that's good. Yeah.
And it's sad because, like you said, think of the things that you could accomplish and the lifestyle, and trust. And I mean, I'm going to say it because I know you're in the same boat as I am. When you've been in this business long enough, And you can look around and you go, okay, have I accomplished everything that I wanted to accomplish? No, probably not. But when you get this age, I look around and I go, this is really now more about a quality of life than it is about accomplishing anything in the music business anymore. This is now I have a certain lifestyle that I like to live, and as long as I'm able to maintain that lifestyle and maybe grow it here and there, I'm not so concerned anymore with what's going on. And trying to make sure
with having the next hit song and the next single and the next this and
I've learned, maybe this is it, that maybe I realized that I had a separate set of dreams that I didn't realize that I had. And that maybe those dreams are a little bit more obtainable than some of the others, and going back to something you said a few minutes ago, and I think this is a huge problem, and I don't want to put everything on people that want to be songwriters, and artists and in the music business. I want to take a little bit of that responsibility, and I think that they fail so often, or they don't reach success, and they certainly don't reach fame, because like you said earlier, when you and I were growing up, we could turn on the radio and I mean, I don't even say 9 out of 10. I want to say like 39 out of 40 songs you're going to hear were great. They were artwork. They were thought out melody. They were very, thought out lyrics. They were heartfelt. They meant something. They were stories, and that was all genres. I feel like we've taken so much of that out and we've cheapened the process that you turn on the radio now, no wonder this kid that doesn't have any talent that's sitting in his bedroom thinks he can do that, because he can.
Well, I was going to say he can with the right technology. He actually can.
I mean, you don't have to be creative anymore. That's what bugs me the most, is that I think we have removed the it must be great litmus test. Now it's just, it can be whatever. I turn on the radio now and I can't even listen to it. Like, it just, whether it's country radio, pop radio, I mean, I can listen. That's when you know you're in trouble, is when I can actually listen to pop radio and can't listen to country radio.
Well, I hear you, and I will say that there probably was a case to be made for the gatekeepers, the Ahmet Ertegans of the world and the Chet Atkinses of the world, and the people, the Tim Dubois and the people who sat behind the desks and went, no, that's not ready yet, and
absolutely.
We
quality over expediency.
Yeah, I mean, it's a two-edged sword, because we do live in this world now where everybody can, and we talk about it at the top of the show, hey, you know what, you can get your stuff out there and people can respond to it and this and that. But, man, I'll tell you, particularly in publishing and songwriting, I guarantee you I came up in a time that would be completely foreign now. I mean, I wrote for a publisher, started writing for a publisher when I was 17, and I don't think he accepted one complete song from me for 2 years.
Wow.
He would send me home with pages of notes. Have you thought about this? You can beat that line. You need to move this first line over here. I mean, it was song college,
Yeah.
And you need to go home and listen to this record, cut 3, look what he does with the inner rhyme. That's what you need, and it was like constantly being immersed in learning, which right there, I think is something that might be where the disconnect, Steve, is that, it seems to be a bad word to keep learning.
Well, no, absolutely. And I think we have removed the fact that I still think that songwriting is a craft. And I think it's a talent, and it's not one that can be taught. I think that you have the ability or you don't. And
yes.
I think the difference now, though, and this is going to piss a lot of people off, but I don't care, is that you're exactly right. When you and I were coming up, going back to those days, when you would turn a song into a publisher, the person that you were getting that feedback from was generally somebody who had written hits themselves and had written great songs, definitely. Most definitely. And they knew exactly what they were talking about because they were craftsmen. And today it's so difficult because you've got 21, 22, 23-year-old Belmont graduates that are the ones that are, because they're cheap to hire or they're working for free because they want to be an artist. And those are the ones that a lot of these publishing companies, because of where sales are and publishing dollars are, they're bringing these people in at low cost, and those are the people that the songwriters are getting feedback from. And they are not craftsmen. They are in that position for a limited amount of time until they can go to that next step and do what it is that they really want to do.
Well, and the culture has also given us permission to write crappy stuff. I don't know that people,
Where do you think that started, Reggie? Where do you think that started?
Man, I don't know, but I'll tell you, I was in a writing session with a guy, very, very good friend of mine, esteemed songwriter. He's brilliant. I'm not taking anything away from him. But we were writing. This was 20 years ago, and we were writing a song, and we had the big hook, and I was in there laboring over these verse lyrics, and he just popped his head and he said, "Dude, nobody's going to listen to that. Just make it rhyme." And I mean, dude, everything within me just like bucked up. But the thing is, he ended up being right. That's the problem. And a lot of that, I think, is what kind of seeped in, where people go, you know what, you're majoring on minors. Don't worry about that. You don't need to sit there and just pour over those two lines again and again and again. And it's like, okay, well, maybe there is some obsession there, but I will tell you, I believe you can hear the difference 20 years later.
Absolutely.
And maybe we've just kind of gotten to this place where, as a culture, we're not listening enough. We're not paying enough attention. Would we know if Desperado showed up today? Would we know if He Stopped Loving Her Today came on the radio? Would we even recognize it? I wonder that. As a songwriter.
Well, number one, I don't think that we would. Number one, and number two, if it did, I don't think we would ever realize it, because we are in this what's next mentality generation and time period, that I don't know that we as a people and as consumers dedicate enough time, energy, resources, and attention to anything that comes in front of us to realize it if we ever did. And
well, I'll tell you something that's, I found myself through a real strange turn of events. I have found myself kind of in the film world. And one of the things that they really have done there is they have really managed to, I don't know how they've done it or how you would quantify it, but that art form, if you watch some of these Netflix series and things that are out, man, there's some great work being done, some real nuanced work.
Yeah.
Some work that people can be proud of, work that's kind of going to the next level. And somehow that industry cultivated and curated and nurtured, the work. And people do recognize, I think we undersell the general public when we don't give them our best, because I think they do find it. And they do recognize it, and pardon me. But I think I would love to see that more and more in the music business, where, and like I said, man, it's not all doom and gloom. I mean, every once in a while, Chris Stapleton will show up and people respond and go, okay, we get that,
I agree with that. And I think what we do as creative people is the mistake I think we make, or a lot of people make anyway, is that you have the examples of the Chris Stapletons who can't get played on radio, but that's not affecting their sales whatsoever. That there is an appreciation for him and his voice and who he is as an artist. Instead of trying to create great Chris Stapleton level material in what it is that you do, we all chase Chris Stapleton.
Well,
and then we all
that
start.
Is absolutely a problem.
And that is what I don't understand is that, it's to put Adele on the other side. You know, when you heard the, you know, the two Adele record, I don't remember what number it was, 1921. It was one of those.
19. Yep.
When 19 came out, you had not heard a record that sounded like that since 1967.
That's absolutely right.
Now, if you pop on an indie rock or almost pop channel,
That's right.
every single record sounds like that.
That's right.
And it's like so much so that I'm now, what's her name? Laura something. I ran across a Christian artist a couple weeks ago. I thought it was Adele.
Right.
I mean, it blew my mind away. And now it was really good. I mean, it was really, really good. But I wonder what you're accomplishing. If I turn on something and I think it's Adele, have you really accomplished something? Or have you just replicated something?
I will tell you this.
Lauren
Whenever
Daigle,
I hear
I think
someone
was her
say,
name.
Lauren Daigle, yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever I hear someone say, hey, it's like so-and-so meets so-and-so, it just makes me bristle. And I go, man, I don't know if I want to hear about this unless you can say to me, I don't know who to compare this to. You know what I mean?
Wow.
It's like,
yeah.
I never, when I was an artist, I would get compared to all the piano guys because I play piano, but I never wanted to hear anybody go, oh, he's just like Elton John. No,
Right.
If I'm just like Elton John, I'm failing, you know? And I think that's, you know, as art, that's an artist question, man. That's where you got to sit people down and go, man, it takes a lot of guts to be you and not be this other person. Because you've seen this other person succeed, and that's who you've seen Mick Jagger dance around the stage. You want to be Mick Jagger, but you can't.
No, that's
you can't. You know,
that's exactly right. It is.
You have to be you, and
it's a lot of no offense, but it's a lot of female artists now, and you know, it's like we've got 3 million Kelsey Ballerinis running around Nashville. And it's like we've already got her. We've already got Carrie Underwood. We've already got Maren Morris. Why are we chasing something else? It's almost like you're chasing somebody else's dream. And you think that if you sound just like her, then everybody that loves her is going to love you. That was thought up by social media gurus. Okay, that is not the case. You know, I would much rather find something different.
Record label guys used to do that too. You know, they'd be like, I mean, I've heard record label people say this. I've actually heard them say, hey, you know, I'd rather have the second or third iteration of that thing than the first one, because the first one's too hard to break.
Right.
But if you've already got Alanis Morissette and you put out something that sounds like Alanis Morissette, you might not sell as many records, but you'll sell enough records. You know what
exactly.
I mean?
Right.
And so they end up putting up subpar artists, subpar art, stuff that's a knockoff of something else. And, you know, and when it's out there occupying space in the universe, people are going to buy it because nature abhors a vacuum, and it perpetuates itself. And that is where, as an artist, as a creative person, you have to stand firm. It takes guts. It takes fortitude. It takes knowing yourself. And it takes you not worrying, not worrying about the slings and arrows that you might face, but just standing in who you are and saying, nope, this is me. Like it, don't like it, I don't care. This is me.
Right. Well, it's
and that takes guts.
It does. You know, originality is hard. You know, it's because we're bred with that as a kid to fit in. Fit in.
That's right.
Don't be an outsider. Don't. And it's so funny that even though that is so true, it's always the one that were the outsiders that did stand out. They're always the ones we end up pointing at. You know what I'm saying? It's you could say the Beatles, Elvis, Elton John. All of those people had something about them that stood out. This biopic on Queen's coming out. I'm anxious to see that. Right. You know, I think that's. Me too. And there's an Elton John one coming out too. That's going to be amazing. I think that if you, and I tell young artists this all the time, if you're so focused on looking up, and when you look up at what there is to offer today, I'm not saying that these people are not talented, but I think it's a little bit more low-hanging fruit. I say look backwards. When you want to see and what I want to achieve and how do I want to emulate my career, look backwards. You know, and because those were superstars. We don't have superstars anymore, and I don't know that we ever will. Again,
I wonder that too. I wonder it's become so accessible. I mean, I remember when Elton John came out, and I remember Elvis being Elvis, and I think you're younger than me, but we're old enough to remember these absolute luminaries, and they were untouchable. You weren't going to get to Elton John. Well, you can get to everybody now. All you got to do is tweet them, you know, and they'll probably tweet back, and that's okay. I mean, there's something to be said for that, and I always loved, you know, Taylor Swift's approach where she's accessible to the fans, and you know, everybody's kind of deconstructing everything, and they're all singing, you know, carpool karaoke with James, you know, Corden, and you know, and everything's deconstructed. It's not the big untouchable thing that it used to be. Even McCartney, you know, is going into, you know, clubs and trying to get back to the people and all that. And I love that. And there's something to be said for that. But there was also something to be said for larger than life things that, you know, and the reason they were, Steve, and I come back to this, the reason they were is because David Bowie was David Bowie because he was David Bowie.
There you go. Exactly. And
he wasn't trying to be Mick Jagger, and Mick Jagger wasn't trying to be Elvis. I mean, on some level, everybody's incorporating influences. That's a different thing.
Sure,
but you know, Prince, you know, incorporated a little Sly Stone and a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But at the end of the day, he was Prince because he was Prince, and he remained true to that. And I think that's the biggest advice I give people. And sometimes you don't end up being a superstar. You know, sometimes you stand firm in your creativity and your individuality, and you know what? You're playing a club on Friday night, and you're still, but I'll tell you this, man, and I put myself in that category. You know, I was a guy who did that, who basically thumbed my nose at what everybody else wanted me to be, and I refused to be that, and I am playing a club in Vegas on Friday night. But here's what I will tell you. I will be able to hand my son all my records, and I will be able to say to him, that's exactly what I wanted to do. It's exactly how I wanted to do it. That's exactly who I am. When I'm dead, you don't have any questions. You'll have no questions. They're all answered in the groove.
Well, and something I didn't know that I learned about you last time we were heading down to Alabama to do that show was, major label or not, you have always funded your own records.
No one's ever paid for a Regie Hamm record except me. Even when I was on Universal, which is the biggest record label in the world, they basically licensed it from me. That was the deal. And they reimbursed me for my out-of-pocket costs, but I pay for it initially, and I pay for all of them. And now I crowdfund them because, you know, I have a little bit of a following, and that's an easy thing to do. Well, I wouldn't say easy, but it's there to do, and I have people who support me, and they like what I do, and you know, et cetera. But man, if you stay who you are, you never have to think about it. You always know. You know, you never have to. I never have to think about, what would a Regie Hamm song be? I know what it is.
Right. Well,
you know?
and yeah, it's, you know, you're, to young artists, you're not going to find yourself in Taylor Swift, and you're not going to find yourself in Thomas Rhett. And,
that's right.
And it is a constant search of self-discovery. And that is such a huge part of the work that goes, and quite honestly, a big part of the sacrifice. And I see that so many of these guys and girls, that's the one thing. They will look at you and they will say, I will do anything to make it, until you start talking about sacrifice. And that is the one thing that they are not willing to do. I'm just not willing to do that, you know? And it's, I think it's just, it's really sad to me. because I think I was telling somebody the other day, I think this is the best and worst time in music business history. I think it's the absolute
100%,
worst
no doubt
time
about
and
it.
the best time.
That's
And
right. You're exactly right about that.
and it's the platform is available. That's
Yes.
what used to be, radio airplay and distribution were the only two things that the major labels had on an independent artist. And and now nobody listens to the radio, and you can have something on iTunes tonight. So we can't blame those two things anymore.
Well, you couldn't even get in a studio. I mean, even studio time was a precious thing, not so many years ago. Now, $750 and you're making a record in your bedroom, and
Absolutely.
And it sounds as good as anything out there,
Yeah, because so are all the guys at the top of the charts right now.
That's right. That's exactly right. So it really does. I think that, and then it really does. If we all have access to the same stuff, and we all have access to the same channels, and we all have access to the same everything, then really what does separate us is our individuality, our personality, our uniqueness. And I tell people, I keep coming back to this. I'm just going to hammer it because, man, that Johnny Cash track hurt. I needed that.
Yeah,
I needed that when it came out. I was like, man, I need to hear this. I thank God Johnny Cash wasn't trying to be somebody else.
Right.
I'm very thankful that Johnny Cash said, no, this is me. This is where I am right now at 70 years old. This is what I want to say. Man, that's an artist.
Absolutely.
And it helped me, you know what I mean? And it probably helped other people. And I think you do yourself a disservice, you do the audience a disservice when you stop being that.
Oh, I agree. Okay, I got to ask you a question. Somebody brought this up last week, and I gave my answer, but I'd be interested to hear. And this is country music related.
Okay.
But I made the statement last week that whether you are a traditionalist or you like what the current whatever it is right now, country music has always evolved. My when I say country music, I'm talking about the late 70s, 80s, early 90s. That to me is country music. But I also know that, Russell's Heart was not Johnny Paycheck's type of country. And
right.
And Rascal Flatts was not Restless Hearts and Diamond Rio's kind of country.
Right.
So, country music has always evolved. It's circular. It is always evolved. What I'm concerned with now is I don't know that what we have now is, I think we are further now from where Restless Heart was, way further than where Restless Heart came from. And I don't know that if we are in an evolution or if we're witnessing the end of a format.
And that's the question?
What do you think? I'm anxious to hear what you think. Are we in an evolution or is it over?
No, I don't think it's over. I think we've seen two musical revolutions in our lifetime in this country. I think jazz was one. It was already fully formed by the time you and I came along. But what we've seen is the rock music era, and then the thing that really has been the most current revolution has been rap. And rap and hip hop has influenced everything. Yep. Everything that has come after it. And what we're seeing now is we're seeing the infusion of that into country music. And all that means is that the beats people dance to are just not the beats our parents dance to.
Right.
And their parents dance to. And so that really, to me, that's the underlying change that's happening in country music, is that we're using more hip hop and urban beats to put under these, what I consider still would be country changes, still would be considered country subject matter, still would be sort of middle America, blue collar thoughts. Although I will say this, country music used to be a format that adults could listen to and it was about more than hooking up, and it was about more than, girl, you look great tonight. It was about stuff. It was about our DIVO RCE. It was about, it was about Smoky Mountain Rain. It was about
Tight
all
fitting
kinds
jeans.
of issues. It ran the gamut of things people deal with. Now, my really only gripe about it is that we've reduced all country subject matter to that moment that the boy meets girl,
Right.
and what they're going to do on the date, and we're going to go out in the back roads, and we're going to do this, and and we're going to do that, and there's going to be jeans hanging on a branch, and blah blah blah. Put your feet up on the dash, and all that stuff. That's fine. All that stuff's fine. But man, there's other stuff to explore. I will tell you this. Although I'm not a huge Kenny Chesney voice fan, I think he's a guy who does look for songs that do stretch that limit a little bit.
I agree.
Where you'll get you have a get along, or you'll have oh my gosh, just drew a blank on the American Kids. Where even noise, songs that are kind of talking about other stuff other than just, man, we hooked up last Friday night, and how do you feel about me, and I feel about you. If you like me, check the box or whatever.
Well, it helps to have Buddy Cannon as a filter.
Well, absolutely, 100%.
Because there again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, he's been there. He's
right.
written great songs. He knows what a great song sounds like. I wish more of the artist had a better filter. I wish a half of them would stop writing.
Well, hey, that's another lesson in kind of living in who you are. One of the things, believe it or not, man, I really admire about Sinatra and Elvis. Those guys went, I'm a song interpreter.
Yes.
Frank Sinatra never said, hey guys, I'm gonna get in the room with you and throw some lines out. He was like, nope, I'm gonna let these badass songwriters write the greatest songs of all time, and then I'm gonna walk in a room and I'm gonna sing them like no one's ever sung them before.
Right.
And that's how you make a classic.
Absolutely. Everybody's got a job to do.
That's exactly right.
And it's, that is the frustrating thing. And hey, we do and look, they're not all that way. We do have some great artists that are great songwriters as well.
They can actually write. Oh, 100%.
I mean, Thomas,
absolutely.
I'm sorry, but Thomas Rhett, how you can't grow up in that household and not know how to write a song,
Yeah, of course that guy already knows. Yeah, he knows what he's doing. And yeah, and listen, Mel Torme was in that same genre as Sinatra, and he was a great songwriter,
yes.
and he did. But I think the point is just coming back home is like living who you are and what you are, and not what you would wish you could be. Aren't we glad Elvis didn't wish he was Mac Davis? Aren't we glad he let Mac Davis write those songs and he just got out there and Elvised them? Right.
No, I agree completely. Can you name what's one song that's out right now that you really like a lot that you think is a great complete work?
Man, I can tell you already, you're not gonna like this, but I think a perfectly written song and track and everything. I don't know that it's country, but I just think it was, as far as craft goes, I think Tequila is one of the best things I've heard in terms of just well written, well done, thought out. I just think the Dan and Shay song.
I agree.
Every time I hear it, I go, man, that's a great song. Top to bottom.
I agree, and you know what I'll say, that was Nicole Gallion, and I don't remember who else was on that song, but that is a great song, and I have to say that, I know you probably do the same thing too. I've taken a break from songwriting for a little while now, and
yes.
it's because I don't feel like, number one, I'm not going to say what they want me to say, because I think it's a waste of time, and I don't waste time. So I've been on this thing like, okay, at the moment, I don't have anything like I feel like I want to take the time to say that's going to mean something. Then when I do, it's like, if you're busy, or, some of the other guys that I enjoy writing with are busy, then it's like nobody else really wants to take the time to try to do something good. It's just about, let's get something down in the next 2 hours, and let's get the track done, and let's get it, and all that. But I was in here in my office messing around And I watched some video on YouTube. I don't remember what it was, but for whatever reason, the next video up after it was Tequila. And I sat there and I listened to the whole thing. And for the first time in a very long time, I wanted to write.
Yeah.
And
yeah, man,
that
it's inspiring.
Because I sat there and I thought, you know what? And I immediately looked up who wrote it. And
right.
And I'm like, those people sat in a room and made a physical decision to not phone it in today.
That's it. I thought the same thing. Absolutely.
And it really encouraged me. And so I'm with you. I love it. And I got to say, other people may hate it. I absolutely, for modern times, where we are right now without all the fluff and everything, I think the new Maroon 5 song, Girl Like You, I think is I think it's the perfect pop song. I really do.
Yeah.
Great vocal, great melody, great song concept, and very well produced. Very minimalistic, but very well produced. It just sounds like a hit from beginning to end.
Well, you're always going to get a great vocal from that guy.
Oh, yeah,
doubt, you know?
yeah.
Well, and I'll tell you, an earworm for me, and I think it's cute, it's tongue in cheek, but I think also really well done, and it's fun as hell. And that's Maren Morris's "Rich." I think is like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
they got it with that one. I'll tell you another song that's out that I think it's really important for the time. I think it's kind of like song meets culture is Jansen's "Drunk Girl." You know, for a guy like him, that is a risk to sit there and have a piano ballad. You know, when he's the straw chewing redneck dude who, you know, to put a song out like that, I think is a risk. But man, my wife, who, you know, your wife's probably the same way. My wife doesn't. She's so jaded. She's been in this thing for 30 years with me, and she called me from a restaurant. She was at the dinner with her sister. She goes, "Hey, who sings that Take a Drunk Girl Home song?" And I said, "That's Chris Jansen." And she goes, "Man, that really affected me." And I, you know, hats off. I mean, when you can do that, that's a thing, you know. So,
man, it's so, and I'll tell you that it's so funny how times change. I remember, oh my God, 10, 12 years ago, I remember playing around with, I think it was me, John Knight, and matter of fact, it was me, John Knight, and Nicole Gallion, and Anthony Smith. We're doing a night at Leaper's Fork.
That's a good night.
It was a great night, man. We had a lot of fun. And I'll never forget the guy that owned Leaper's Fork came and said, "Hey, there's this local kid. He wants to get up and sing. Do you mind? We love him. Can he get up?" And it was Chris Jansen. Got up and sang a couple songs, you know, and it's like, you know, it's so funny to watch how people, you know, where life can take people, you know.
Dude, I've got, you know, you and I probably have a lot of those stories. I've got, you know, it's so, I don't know what it says about me, but I've got a whole wall full of people that either opened for me or, you know, I did shows with back in the day, and now they're superstars, you know. But that is a very interesting, you know, it's always an interesting thing when you see somebody's trajectory like that. And it's catching the right song and, you know, catching the right thing at the right time. It's always about that. And not giving up. Those people are putting time in.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, that kind of goes back to what you're talking about, you know, working.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, I know it's been about an hour. I'll let you go, man. I appreciate you coming on tonight. We'll definitely do it again. We'll do this again, and we'll have you in the other studio over there, and we'll put a little bit more thought into it and get you over here, and we'll do it in person.
Man, I would love to. I've enjoyed this, Steve. I always love talking to you anyway, and you're a guy who never shies away from opinions and saying something that might ruffle feathers, and I love that. You know what I mean? It's just that's an awesome quality.
Well, I don't know if it's awesome or not. I've yet to determine if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but you know, who the hell cares?
No, man, it's a good thing. And you know, people don't always have to agree with you, but they know where you stand, and that's important, you know.
Well, that's
So.
I do appreciate that, Reggie, and you're the same way, and that's why I think we hit it off so well. It's almost like I was adopted, so I'm pretty sure we're not related, but we think a lot of the same on a lot of the same stuff. So, man, it's been good having you, and I appreciate you taking out the time. I know you got a busy schedule, and I got some other stuff I need to talk to you about, so I will probably call you at some point this week and see about getting together.
I love it, man. Thank you so much, Steve.
All right, buddy.
Talk to you soon.
Have a good night.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, 5-time SESAC Songwriter of the Year. I think he has 23 number ones to his credit, including the just absolute huge smash, Time of My Life, that was recorded by David Cook. Of course, he sang that song the night he won American Idol, and it was just an amazing thing, and it took Reggie on an amazing ride. I appreciate him taking the time to join us tonight. I'm glad you have as well. I know we didn't get to a lot of questions. We didn't get to a lot of comments, and sometimes it's that way when you just get involved in conversation. It's almost like you just got to let the conversation roll. But like I said, we are going to have Reggie back. We're going to have him here in person, and we're going to sit down in the other studio over there when we do this, and maybe make it like a round table. I may pull 3 or 4 people in, and we all sit around and have kind of a round table discussion. So I do want to open it up for a few minutes. If anybody has any questions or any comments that you'd like to make, go ahead and type them in the chat. If you're on Twitch, you can type them in the chat. If you're on YouTube, you can type them in the chat right there too, and they'll pop right up here in front of me. And I will certainly be more than happy to answer any questions you've got or read any comments that you had. I hope you enjoyed some of what Reggie and I got into, and that's what I meant to look over and see if you guys had some questions, which a couple of you did. And when you get 2 guys in the music business that have done this as long as we have, we're not short on opinions or words. And we could have carried on that conversation for hours, because trust me, when we went and did a show together down in Alabama, it was me and Reggie and John Kennedy, and we had some of the most amazing conversation that I've ever been a part of on the 2.5-hour ride down and the 2.5-hour ride back. And you really get to know people, you get to know their heart and who they are as people, and I can tell you that Reggie is one of the best. He really is. You ought to check his book out. He's written a book about the American Idol journey and writing that song and how it transitioned into his life. It's amazing. I also want to point you to, let me go back up to the other graphic. If you look right down there in the right-hand corner, that is a copy of one of Reggie's albums, Set It On Fire, that if you have never heard it before, I highly encourage you to go buy that record and listen to it, because it is absolutely amazing. The guy's written, like I said, 21, 22, 23 number 1 records, and you get to hear Regie Hamm on that record. He's brilliant at absolutely everything that he does, and I appreciate him being here tonight. I've got something that I want to play for you guys that my wife sent me earlier tonight. And I am such a fan of music, and especially 80s music. That's I love 80s music, and it's just, that's my time period. 80s, 90s, that's what I love, and pop music, I absolutely love it. There is a big hit song out right now by Post Malone, and called Better Now, and this kid has redone this like it was an 80s song. And I know I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to get copyright strict for this. But that's all right, because I got to play it, because I just think it is so super cool. I want you guys to check this out. If you're familiar with the Post Malone song, then you're going to get this. If not, this goes right along. This could be 1987. Listen to this. This is awesome. I mean, that could be the Culture Club. Can't you hear George Michael? Anyway, I just had to play that. I just thought that was so awesome. How amazing is that sound like an 80s song? I mean, it's almost perfect. Let me look over here. We've got some questions. Ring Roundup says, to add on to what you were talking about, where the parents tell the kids they can accomplish anything, what Drew Brees said to his kids after he broke the record. What are your thoughts on that? Look, as a parent, you want to support your children in anything that it is that they want to do. Anything whatsoever. And it doesn't matter. There's no, it should be this or it should be that. There is none of that. You want them to be able to do whatever it is that they want to do. However, I believe that it's the job of parents, when you're thinking about parenting, to encourage your children to chase and follow the things that they have a strength in. I don't think that it helps anybody when these parents who have kids that can't sing tell them they can be great singers. You could say the same thing about, you can grow up and be president. I mean, is it possible? I mean, you have a better shot of getting struck by lightning 10 times in a row and then winning the lottery. But could it? See, I just don't. I think at times we put goals that are too far out there. We set the stakes too high and we put them too far out there, and then we wonder why kids have the stresses that they have in trying to achieve that level of success or that goal that we put out there. Sure, the right thing is to tell your kids you can be anything you want to be. The truth of the matter is that you have the freedom and the ability to work hard towards whatever it is that you want to be. Just by telling somebody that they can be doesn't mean that they can. A lot of other things have to line up. I just tend to believe more in the let's find out what your strengths are and let's support every single one of those in every way that we can, emotionally, financially, physically. I think that you give people a better shot than just putting out a blank statement that you can be anything that you want to be. Well, what if you want to be something that's damn near impossible to be, and you just don't have the talent set to make that happen? To me, you're almost setting people up to be failures. That is something that I don't want to do. And that, a lot of people tell me, well, you just come off very brass, and it's like, no, the worst thing in the world that I can do is waste my time. So I do not like to see other people waste their time. Look, the entertainment business, the music business is hard. It's very difficult. If everybody could do it, then everybody would be doing it, and everybody would be successful at it. There are plenty of talented people that are not successful and won't ever be successful. There are a lot of untalented people who are really successful. So see, there's no 1 + 1 = 2 in the music business. 1 + 1 = 3 sometimes. 1 + 4 = 2 sometimes. Because there's no set of rules. There's no check this box, we did that, and it's a ladder that we're climbing. When you're dealing with uncertainty and you're dealing with something that never stays the same, it constantly changes. The decision makers constantly change. There is absolutely no way within a normal and expected probability to be able to tell somebody that they can do anything that they want to do. I say chase your dreams, absolutely. But if you really want to be successful, why not find and chase that dream that you have a talent for or a natural ability towards? It's the same. You can't honestly look, if you have a son and your kid's 18 years old and he's 5'3", and that's as tall as he's ever going to be, he's not going to be an NFL quarterback. So why look at that kid and say you can be anything in the world you want to be? And that kid says, I want to be an NFL quarterback. It's not going to happen. It's talking about Drew Brees. The commentators even said it last night. Giving him 6 feet is giving him more than he deserves because he's not 6 foot tall, but he's not 5'3". So we have to be careful telling people that they can be anything that they want to be. And what's funny is that I get all of these people who parents, they've told them that, and people surrounding them, they've told them that their whole life. So they finally get to Nashville and they get to a producer like me or an artist developer like me or a songwriter like me, and we're in a room, and they actually believe that they can be Tim McGraw or Florida Georgia Line or Taylor Swift. They believe, and I'm sitting there with a hard rock professional opinion going, no, you can't. You won't. You don't have the talent set that they have. And furthermore, why shoot to be, like Regie and I were talking about, why shoot to be that person? Shoot to be the best you that you can be. Instead of being the next Taylor Swift, be the next you. Be the first you. Be the last you. And that's hard, like Regie was saying. It's hard to be an individual. It's hard to be different. But like we were talking about, it's funny that when we look around and we point at the people that are most successful, they were not like anybody else. They were themselves. And they wanted to be the best them. They wanted to set the trend and not follow the trend. And that's my biggest piece of advice for you tonight is I hope what you take away from the conversation Regie and I had, be an individual. There's nothing wrong. I end every show, guys, with what? Keep being creative. Keep pushing the boundaries. And there's nothing wrong with being independent. Guys, there's nothing wrong with being independent. There's nothing wrong with being different. Explore that. Exploit that. Find people who like what it is that you're good at and in which the way that you do it. Do that and you'll have something. Do that and grow that. Stop just putting out single after single after single after single because nobody cares. You keep putting out all this music that sounds just like something else. Well, they've already bought all that. Be original. Be unique. There's nothing wrong with that. Rare Flavor says, appreciate the DistroKid review video. Hey, man, thank you so much. That has been getting so much traffic lately. It's insane. The numbers are going through the roof on that thing, and I appreciate you guys. Absolutely. I do want you to know, though, I have no affiliation with DistroKid whatsoever, none with TuneCore. That was not a paid video. It was not an advertisement. That was purely based on my use of the platforms, of all the different platforms. So it was not a paid thing. I keep getting these messages. Oh, do you work for? No, I don't. I've never met anybody. Well, I've met somebody from DistroKid, but that it's had nothing to do with like being a shill for DistroKid. I've just found it to be the most simple and really cool platform to use. So for you independent artists, when you get ready to release your EP or album or single or whatever it is, you've got all these different distribution platforms, a lot of them to check out there. I've got a video up. You can take a look at it where I compared TuneCore and DistroKid, kind of the plus and minuses and positives and negatives about both. And you can check that video out on the channel. Sorry that I've not been able to do a lot of videos here lately, guys. I have been so slammed with working with the artists that I'm working in the studio producing. I've been going all over the country with music video shoots, and it's been crazy. I do want to get to the point where I can get back and start making those videos and having new videos for you every Tuesday and Thursday. Right now, it's just an impossibility. And this hour and a half that we spend together on Tuesday nights is about all the time that I have. I've put way too much on my plate. But you know what? I'm not unhappy about it. I love to work. I love the artists that I'm working with right now. I'm working with a Texas artist, which I'm learning more and more about the Texas music scene. And the more I learn about it, the more I absolutely love it. If you are an independent artist and you want to model your career and try to achieve success, look at the Texas music scene. They are brilliant. They are absolutely brilliant, and how they've set that up down there. I'm working with an artist down there named Morgan Ashley. We just put her new single out this week, as a matter of fact, called Bad Boy Chaser, which I had the pleasure of writing that song with her and also producing it. And it was the #1 most downloaded song at Texas radio this week. It's the follow-up single to her last single that I produced called Your Girl, which broke the top 40 for her first single. It was just amazing, but Bad Boy Chaser is going to do really well. Love writing that song with her, love producing it. And then I'm also developing, managing, and producing a pop duo from Mississippi called Gilded, two sisters. And I have to say, in my many years in the business, very rarely do you run across an artist that has the complete package. They have the look, the songwriting, and the talent, and the resources. Very rarely do you run into somebody that has all of those, and they do. And it's amazing to see where they are at 16, 17 years old and where they're going to be in 3 years from now. But we're working on their debut EP and some music videos, and we did a photo shoot, and we're getting ready to launch them big time over the next quarter and into the beginning of next year. They are going to be huge. I'm just telling you right now, they're going to be huge. You can check all these guys that I'm working with. With Morgan Ashley, you can check her out on Instagram. I think it's Morgan Ashley Music. And for Gilded, it's at Official Gilded on Instagram, Twitter. And as always, don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. It's at the Steve Freeman everywhere. Let me see if we got any guys like Granger Smith from the Texas. Yeah, man, Granger's doing great. What a lot of people don't understand is that Texas music scene guys have figured out exactly what I was talking about earlier, and that is the difference between success and fame. They realized that there was more success to be had than there was fame. So they don't even step out. Very rarely do they step outside of Texas. And now that's starting to get a little bit bigger. They're starting to play New Mexico, Missouri, Arkansas. It's kind of the red dirt scene. Oklahoma is a part of that now. And it's really starting to grow. But these radio stations down in Texas, they play Texas music. You don't have to be a superstar. They play their own. They take care of their own. There's guys down there playing for $25,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a night that never leave Texas. They sell plenty of merch. They sell plenty of albums. They sell lots of concert tickets. And it's an amazing thing going on down there. The more that I'm involved with it, I was just down in College Station a few weeks back with Morgan, and to see people's response to Texas artists, it's unbelievable. Listening to the radio down there was amazing. I heard songs I've never heard before because they only play them in Texas. And I heard artists that I'd never heard before because they only play them in Texas. And I was blown away by some of the stuff that I was hearing. I really was. And it really excited me. I'm glad to be working with Morgan and really engaged in the Texas music scene down there, because it is really something amazing. Really something amazing. Well, if you guys don't have anything else, if you don't have any other questions, then we will end it here for the night. I can't thank you guys enough for joining us again. Went a little bit over. I want to thank Regie Hamm for coming on the show tonight, and I look forward to when we actually get him here in person. I'm working on some other guests that I think you guys are going to find really interesting and are really going to love listening to, and maybe getting some advice from, and being able to ask questions of whenever I look over at the screen and actually ask the questions that you've asked. Guys, I apologize for that. That's totally on me. Like I said, next week I am on vacation, barring the hurricane down there doesn't wipe out the beach house, which I'm hoping doesn't happen. I'm hoping it's gone. Supposed to leave Saturday. But I might try to find a way to be able to do the show from the beach. If not, pay attention to my social media. I'll let you know. And then if we, for whatever reason, we don't, then we will be back week after next for sure. Guys, as always, keep being creative. Keep pushing the boundaries. And there's nothing wrong with being independent. Guys, I'll see you next time.
Why